It's Sunday, June 5th. This is all about your Benjamins and your weekly mixtape and weekend review video. Hope you had a great week. It's a great day to be back doing this outside on the patio. The birds chirping in the background, the sunlight coming through. It's been a beautiful week here in Fishers, Indiana, and trying to be outside as much as I can. So hopefully you're getting a little bit of this great weather wherever it is that you may be. So let's get to the headlines that may or may not be impacting your financial plan and portfolio. And as you can see down below, just a few of them to go over and a couple of them touch, and not any really new topics. On Friday, we had the payroll numbers come out, and payrolls rose by 390,000 jobs, which is kind of, obviously is a good thing. We're seeing employers continue to hiring maybe at a little bit of a slower rate, but that's going to put pressure on the inflation topic because with strong employment, wages going up, that ties into inflation. It's interesting, though. We've had moments before we talked about how we're kind of living in this world with different experiences going on. We've got 390,000 jobs being added to the economy, and meanwhile you have a lot of tech and startup companies laying people off. So depending on where you're working in the economy, you may not think that the employment picture is so great. You may be getting laid off, maybe having friends getting laid off, maybe worrying about it. Tesla came out and said they were going to lay off 10% of their field. So depending on where things are, you're seeing jobs being added and you're seeing jobs being taken away, which I guess maybe is always normal. But this time we're seeing the shift to the high growth areas for the last 5-10 years being the ones that are laying off. And maybe they overextended themselves when money was cheap and the economy was doing well. They hired for where they were going to be in the future. And now that they're not there, they got to pull things back to where they are today and be a little bit more protective going into what everybody assumes is a recession that we're probably already in. And the reality of it is, we talked about that in the past, that we probably were already in a recession. It's just how bad is it going to be? How long will it last? Because all of the data that determines if we're in a recession or not is backward looking. So we've got that first quarter GDP that was negative growth. So we'll see what second quarter looks like as we come up at the end of this month, and which is crazy to think that we're already halfway through the year. So payroll numbers, nonetheless, were good. The second article talks about how that job report is going to continue to allow the Fed to keep raising rates at a half a point. So 50 basis points is what you may hear, 0.50. That looks like that is still on the table to happen. It was what they said they would. And you're going to have camps on both sides, which is what makes this so tough to digest and figure out what does this mean and what happens. You're going to have a camp that says that's a positive thing, that they can continue to raise rates at that rate. That means the economy is strong enough to take those on. You're going to have people on the other side who are going to say, well, things are slowing down. We don't want rates to go up too quickly. The market may sell off on that news. Although I've got to believe that that stuff is priced in. Remember, the market is looking forward, trying to come up with where they think prices are going to be. It digests information as it comes. It makes an adjustment to the prices, and then it moves forward again. You've got to expect that is in the price of the market today. Now, the language of what the Fed says may impact it. They may be, okay, we know we're going to raise by 50 basis points, but maybe we didn't think the Fed was going to say whatever it is they might say, and that could have a reverse, or that could have a reaction one way or the other in the market. So again, all these factors that impact the market day to day, week to week, month to month. But if you are a long-term investor, which if you're following All About Your Benjamins and listening to me, I've got to imagine that the majority of your investing is for the long term. These are headlines that will happen numerous times over your investing career. They already have. They're not ones that we probably want to react to or spend too much energy on. Let other people come up with storylines, come up with predictions that will probably be wrong. And at the end of the day, the predictions they're making, there's nothing you can really do to counteract those anyways. So it's better, from my history of 18 years of being a financial advisor, to stay the course, stay diversified. Diversified portfolio year to date is not doing too bad relative to what the market's doing or what some individual securities are doing. So it's nearly impossible to protect going down in the market. It's, can you protect going down too much? And a diversified portfolio, from what I'm seeing, is kind of doing what it's supposed to do. So try not to let these headlines go through, but I want to make sure you understand why people are talking about them. The next one deals with inflation. President Biden says there's nothing that the government can do in the short term to fix inflation prices going up, food, gas, the things that you're all seeing as you go to check out or go to the pump. There is a article in the mixtape section from Jason Zweig. Truthfully to be told, I haven't read it yet as I'm recording this. I'll read it as I put it in there to find my quote. But it talks about old ways of trying to combat inflation putting in price limits and kind of capping prices, that's worked in the past and it's gaining some steam with people today. So if you're interested in learning more about how they've battled inflation in the past and what might come down the road, check that out from Jason Zweig. It's down in the mixtape. But right now, President Biden says there's nothing we can do that will fix it in the short term. Anything that they have from a regulatory standpoint or from a government standpoint, legislative standpoint, is going to take time to come in. So hopefully we're seeing inflation begin to peak. Hopefully it may turn over a little bit. But it's pretty crazy if you look back and just think about how quickly things ran up. And there's tons of stories that could be attributed to it and tons of what ifs, tons of blame being placed. Printing money for COVID and printing money before that, putting more money into the system. You've got COVID and supply chain issues, which I don't think you can dismiss those. You've got the war with Ukraine and Russia and oil prices going up because of that. It's all this as like this perfect storm to bring this inflation to us that went from 0 to 100 real quick. And hopefully we can battle that down and bring it back down. Final one, just talking about inflation. There are some areas that are lightening up. Lumber prices have come down, even though interest rates are going up. So interest rates going up can have an impact on construction. If it's more expensive to borrow, maybe people don't build. Maybe they fix things up. The mortgage rates are about 5% now when they started the year at around 3%, as the article states. So you're seeing mortgage rates go up, which may slow building a little bit. And there's still not enough supply on the market to meet the demand for housing. And while 5% on a mortgage doesn't sound exciting when we were at 2.5% not too long ago, 5% mortgages are still relatively low historically. If you're my age, talk to your parents, talk to your grandparents about some of the mortgages they had that were double digits. Yes, other interest rates were a lot higher back then, but still you got locked into a high interest rate back then. 5% to them probably still sounds really, really good. So it's all relative. But we're seeing some of the pricing in housing, at least builds, come down a little bit. What that will do to housing prices, I don't know. If I had to make a bet, I don't think we see a big housing crash like we saw in 2008, 2009. I've had this conversation with clients. Back then, that was a financial instrument that was cheap money, which we had cheap money that's gone away, that drove prices up. You had people owning multiple houses, money just be given away. They're still pretty strict with money. We refinanced last year, and it was a big pain in the butt. So it's not as if they're giving money away. When we built this house that I'm sitting behind right now, we were 26, I believe, 25, 26, and we were given a construction loan, which is an open-ended loan to go out and build our house. They're not doing that today. So what we're seeing, I believe the reason for housing prices doing what they've done over the last couple of years is just supply and demand. Not enough supply. Yes, people had money to go there. So the solution to drive prices down in the form of a crash would be somehow I think, a huge plop of houses coming to the market. Home builders can't build that fast. Supplies and manpower can't build that fast. So I would expect to see supply of houses slowly beginning to increase, and then you would probably see home builders taper off so they didn't have too much supply they're sitting on, and prices would stabilize. So while we might not see the huge increase of pricing going forward in housing because of interest rates and other things, I also don't think you're going to see huge decreases either. There might be pockets. There's always pockets somewhere where somewhere just got ridiculously overheated and they're going to crash. But the housing market across the board, I think is going to be pretty stable through all of this, unless some other things come out that we don't know about, black swan events and things in the background with the banking system. But otherwise, I think that you're going to see it kind of plateau out. Has nothing to do with the headlines today, but nonetheless, we went down that path. All right, so that's it for today. Actually, one other thing. Last week on Memorial Day, I think it was Memorial Day when it dropped, the new Top Gun Maverick dropped. Great reviews, tons of great numbers. Box office, I don't know if it set any records or anything, but I saw it last night with some friends, and it was very good. So if you are around my age or you've seen Top Gun before, I highly recommend going to see it. Just enough of nostalgia in the movie, and also just enough of new and surprises as well. But very well done. It was a great movie, and just thought I would throw that in at the very end. So now I'm done. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend. Have a great week coming up. We'll be back next week as well. Remember, this can be heard on the podcast as well. So if you don't want to watch the video, you can pop it in on the podcast on All About Your Benjamins. We'll have a new episode of the next episode. We're recording this week, so it'll probably be out later this week or early next week, depending on work schedule with clients. So with that, have a great rest of the day. Thanks for tuning in. As always, appreciate you tuning in. So have a great day. We'll see you all in the next episode.